Sunshine Canyon, because this ain't Abu Dhabi in the Emirates. So here I am shoveling snow. We've got to get a pathway down to the road. And okay, rant, how do you say that? Let's talk a little bit about intent behind things. So yesterday we were talking about like your foot pattern, and I promise you I'll do a little video on what your hip pattern should do, and then you'll start to match your hip pattern with your foot pattern. And that should make things a lot of very clear. But there's an interesting, I've got into trouble before because I get frustrated with the way people strengthen, look at things, and the impediments that it causes. And I think I apologize because I don't think I've really expressed myself clearly, and I don't think I thought it through clearly enough. I knew I was frustrated. I knew it was wrong. But I'm going to talk a little bit about intent. So, you know, a lot of the times, one is your glute max is a very, very big muscle, so it doesn't really produce blood lactate or lactic acid or metabolic acidosis. So often it doesn't burn. So when you're walking around doing clamshells or strengthening your hips and feeling the burn, it's often the small stabilizing muscles and not the big glute max. So that might be one reason why you can't get your glute max to fire. You know, we talk about the tension and inhibition, but you know, it's intent. If you walk around and you tighten your core and you braced your core and you want to look ripped and shredded and you walked around with excessive tone, and then you wonder why your stabilizing muscles and your sort of splinting guarding muscles got stronger than your big prime moving muscles, and now all of a sudden you can't shovel snow because your back's going to hurt. That's like an intent problem, isn't it? Okay, so intent is really, really important. So I think try and reframe and say, I want to be a functional human being. You know, you want to run and get fit so that you can concentrate longer, so that you can be fitter, healthier, so that you're not a burden on your fellow man for as long as possible. One day, probably you are going to be a burden and you're going to be needing care. So my suggestion to you is make yourself useful and care for others. And if you start thinking about, like, I want strong functional hips so I can care for people, so that I can be functional, so that I can get up off the floor for as long as possible, you'll start to have a much more healthy relationship with your body. So many of the big influencers and the hacks and the shortcuts and this and that, they've all had knee replacements, hip surgery, back surgery, a little bit more broken than you might think, okay? It's not about self-service. It's not about making your ass look good. It's not about guilt, shame, I'm not enough, I don't have enough, I need to hack, I need to try and find some 3%, okay? Love yourself and get out there and move with the purpose of being a functional, helpful human being. And you see how things start to turn around and change for you. Okay, love you, take care, be useful.